Starting a video about a PC upgrade by looking at action cameras may seem a little odd, but bear with me. To date, this has been my little action cam, the Firefly. That serves me well, but I've been looking to branch out and to get better resolution, especially for my flying videos. Now this has a maximum of 2.5K at around 30 frames per second, and I've had no problems editing and rendering that footage. Enter the new guy then. This is the modular system, the Insta1R, with the 4K mod and also the 360K mod. The 4K mod here capable of obviously 4K at up to 60 frames a second. Now that's an entirely different beast to this little guy. What I found was when trying to edit the video, once converted to MP4, obviously it's still 60 frames a second at 4K, which is some 135 megabits a second of data. Trying to edit and render that was causing my PC an amount of grief. Not a problem with the memory, but the CPU going to 100%. Something needs to be done. Let's flip over then to the PC and I'll show you the problem and my proposed solution. This is the video file from the beginning, and we can see that it's HD mode 1920 by 1080 at 25 frames a second, streaming 23.4 megabits a second. In my video editor of choice, which is DaVinci Resolve, we can see the footage and I can scroll through it with no problems at all and start it with the spacebar. If I start the video playing, looking at the CPU now, it's running between 65 to 67%, so it's not terribly stressed. If we now look at the 4K video from the Insta360, we can see that it's 4K at 60 frames a second and 135 megabits per second. If we now import that into DaVinci, if I drag the playhead across, we can see that although the playhead is moving, the video is not keeping up with it by any stretch of the imagination. If I now go back and press the spacebar so that it should start playing, going back, the CPU is now totally maxed out. We can see here my current setup, the i5-6400 at 2.7 gigs, and it's just running at 100%, which makes editing a challenge at least, shall we say. What to do then? I have this CPU-Z little utility which we can use to benchmark or profile the system as it is and then look for a way forward. In CPU-Z then we can select the benchmark tab and benchmark the CPU. This gives us some values here for the processor: single-threaded 343, multi-threaded 1359, multi-thread ratio 3.96. If we then click on validate and submit, the link then takes us to the CPU-Z validator, where we can see all the information about my system, more importantly the benchmark results, and click on the score to compare. If we click on my multi-thread result, it gives us the comparison against pretty much every other processor. We can see where I am at 343, and we have to scroll down quite a ways before we find that down here. The theory being that anywhere above here is got to be better, and obviously the further up you go, the more it's going to cost you. You go up as high as your budget will allow. Let's scroll up a little way. So we're getting into the AMD Ryzen 5 area here, 2600. Let's go up a bit more. We've got the 3600 6-core. I think I can go a little higher. This is the CPU that I've selected. So we're going from some 300 and odd to 506. Hopefully that will make a difference to us. Not only do you have to consider the processor, but also a suitable motherboard. My memory already being DDR4, that will remain. This is what I've bought then, the AMD Ryzen 5 3600X, and that's cost €215.90. Also a suitable gigabyte motherboard at $72.99. Once they've arrived, we'll see if it has improved the situation on our video editing. The parts have arrived then, and it certainly looks the part, very black and business-like looking. Processor obviously go in there, and this type of CPU has the screws, so we have to remove the screws from the motherboard. And I'm sure you've all seen people plug in CPUs before, so I shan't bore you with all that. We will come back when the thing has booted up and we can test it out with the video. The new processor and motherboard are installed, then everything else has stayed the same graphics card, same DDR4 16 gig of memory. If we go to the benchmark part now, what we're expecting, the prediction was from the validator website that we would see a single thread of around 500 and a multi-thread around 4000. Let's see what we get. I can hear the fans spinning up as the processor gets stressed, and that's stopped now, and I can hear the fan spinning down, so I know that the fan control works as well. And a good result, I think. We were looking for 4000, 4147, and 500. We've got 518, nearly 19, a multi-thread ratio of 8. That's fantastic. That's almost exactly where the prediction said we were going to be, and a little better, so I'm happy with that. What's going to happen though in DaVinci Resolve and our 4K video? Here then, as before, we have the video. If I drag the playhead down, we can see that the display is following the playhead nice and quickly. The other test that I did was to continuously play the video. So if I hit the spacebar and play it, and then look at the processor performance in the task manager, we see the processor around 60%, so that's fantastic. We can see the peaks here where the CPU is having to work harder with certain parts of the video. Now that it's looking just at the sky pretty much, it's flat at around 57% CPU. I couldn't really be happier. It has borne out the value of these tools, and as always, links down in the description. If you're looking to upgrade your system, I suggest you follow the same path. If you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below the video.